Hello and welcome to Battery Dance TV. My name is Jonathan Hollander and I'm the artistic director and founder of Battery Dance in New York. And this is the third in a series of interviews leading up to Canadian Voices in Dance, a program that will premiere on Battery Dance TV and YouTube on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 25th, coming up on Thursday. So this is a two-part interview beginning with Alan and Karen Kaeja of Kaeja to Dance in Toronto. The company was featured last summer in the 39th annual Battery Dance Festival, and we're delighted to open up the interview today with them. And later on, we will visit National Ballet of Canada with Alysa Pires and Christopher Gerty. So let's start off with Kaeja to Dance, Alan and Karen Kaeja. Now, we were thrilled to have an interview with Alan on Battery Dance TV some months ago, and also to showcase the work of the company as part of Battery Dance Festival in August, the 39th annual that went remote. This time, we're going to have two different short works. I call them magnificent miniatures. And I'd love to talk to you, Karen and Alan, about these works, but also let's start us off. Tell us a little bit about the company and how it was formed.
Yeah, Kaeja to Dance, we're heading into our 30th anniversary. So we created Kaeja to Dance in 1990. I know it's crazy. When we initially created Kaeja, we created it as an umbrella of all the different activities back then that we were doing, which was primarily stage work and education. And then within a decade, we added film to that. And then a decade later, we added all of our community work to that. So Kaeja is an umbrella of everything that we do.
I see. So Kaeja to Dance is essentially the dance company activity, and Kaeja is the institution. Did I get that right?
Kaeja to Dance is the umbrella institution.
Okay.
We short form it, calling it Kaeja.
I see, like battery or battery dance instead of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Battery to Dance. Yeah.
Well, I do see a lot of parallels between us. I mean, around for some decades, Battery is actually in its 45th season. So we've got 50% going there above you, but you know, wow, you have accomplished so much. And I also think that our audience will be fascinated by a married couple who have made their careers together. And when they see the dance, the duet that you've done together, we see this living and breathing muscles and bones that are so well joined. And in today's world where we're all separated, I think that you stand for something just beautiful about a man and a woman and the love and the respect. Now, I understand, Karen, that the concept for the two short works were your concept. How did you come up with this?
Well, we're in a beautiful environment. We have created a few different sort of live streams and films up here. And we have a niece that lives near here. She comes up and visits. And
great niece.
Great niece. And I'm just really craving to be dancing together with Alan, and said, let's just go down to the shore and bring her with us. And Alan sort of told her how to hang on to the camera. And we did what we do.
Well, what you do is, you know, it looks effortless, but it's anything but. It shows years and years of practice, and where you can have that ease. Karen, you're in the air a lot of the time. How does that feel to you to be surrendering yourself to Alan's arms? And you know, probably surrendering is not the right word, because I think you are actively engaged in the mechanics of those lifts.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I think with Alan, there's like his arms and my body are an extension of each other. So with the momentum, the velocity, the gravity and the sort of plumb line of how that's off kilter or on kilter, I think, it's been, more than 30 years of diving in to respond to that. And honestly, the winter one, which we shot a few days ago, not even a week ago,
Yeah.
was 2 takes. And the second take, it was so cold outside, and I just I just said, let's just do what we do. We chatted for a moment and then did it. And actually what I was going to say is, in the winter one, especially because the sky is white and the snow is white, I didn't know where I was.
I
But
can imagine.
I never had a moment of not trusting how that was going to, end up. It is a surrender. It's like super true flight.
But I would venture to say, in terms of our partnering, because we've actually been partnering for almost 40 years,
Mhm.
Karen is just a natural flyer. Her body understands. And because of my background of wrestling and judo, I know how to throw. And so it's been this perfect marriage, not only together, but of this physical connection for almost 40 years.
Well, starting and ending the Canadian Voices in Dance, where we're focusing on Canada, I think in your work, maybe more than any other work that we could possibly show, you're engaging with and immersing yourself and immersing us in Canada. In the shoreline, in the sunset piece, and with the water and the snow, the incredible cold of the snow piece, we're in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't be anywhere else.
Yeah, it is really Canadian.
No, 100%. And we should do this seasonally, because we have a very distinct 4 seasons. And I think it exemplifies our environment so beautifully, because in one day we're out swimming and it's hot, and we're in bathing suits, and then we're snowshoeing, and we're in our down jackets. And so,
well, to me, being in this very urban environment in Lower Manhattan, surrounded by buildings, and my escape is to go to the roof and gaze out over the tops of the buildings into the sky. During the pandemic, being so shut in, your work, the bringing us into nature and making the human figures part of that natural landscape is a wonderful release, I think.
Yeah, and the pandemic has brought us even closer, and so it's also an opportunity to explore that in the environment that we're in. We were, prior to the pandemic, sort of departing onto slightly separate journeys of a million projects that would have had us quite dispersed, and then boom, we are together in yet another incarnation of a relationship. And so the creativity just funnels through that. We work very intuitively when we work together, very much on projects that we collaborate on. When we work separately, it's still intuitive, but there's a different aspect of sort of linear, singular intellect that goes along with our own paths. But together there's this.
Well, that's such a good point, Karen, because when you're working separately, I assume you're working with other dancers.
Yeah.
Energy in your communication is that way. And when you're working together in these duets, it's this way.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, and I have to say that it's, in many respects, been a real gift for us, but also, a gift in terms of expanding our creative process and our creative abilities. So this time period, we've been able to harness in many different ways. And part of that is because of the extent of our background in film, on stage, with community, without community. It's been really fascinating. And
And the
for us to be,
durability, I could say the durability of your relationship,
Mhm.
you know, that
Yeah.
it has withstood the pressures that people feel when they're too close or they're spending so much time with each other and they're not used to that. So it was a test and I think you passed it.
So far, so good, John.
yeah. And we also have two daughters as well, but they are older, so they're not with us up here. I mean, they visit, but
Mhm.
But any relationship endures a lot of weather, and Canada is wonderfully, for me, representative of the climate of the inner emotional landscape that is exposed in the outer landscape. And then you bring two people together that weather that, and yeah, it has its own force. And
I think that this little interview is very precious and very intimate and also very different from any other interview I could imagine having because you brought us into your home and
mm,
you know, kind of your very personal space. So thank you so much. And I know that the audience will savor your work as well as I did and have.
thank you so much
thank
for
you,
having
Jonathan.
us.
It's been fantastic, and it's been fantastic getting to know you.
Feel the same way. It's just the beginning. And now let's move to the National Ballet of Canada. We're delighted with a dance film that will be part of Canadian Voices in Dance that was contributed by the National Ballet. And we're here to discuss the work with choreographer Alysa Pires and dancer Christopher Gerty. Let's get behind the scenes for the beautiful film that you'll see on Thursday, March 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as part of Canadian Voices in Dance. They've created a wonderful work. I so enjoyed it. I've seen it about 3 times now, and I think it's one of those works that you can see over and over again. Alysa, I'm going to start with you because you choreographed this work and you're a choreographic associate with the National Ballet of Canada. And from what I understand, this was originally created for a quartet of dancers in 2018. What was the transition like to take this stage work for 4 and make it into a site-specific work for a soloist?
Yeah, it was originally for 4 dancers and meant to be on a proscenium stage. And when we knew that we had an opportunity to film, but we weren't going to have an opportunity to rehearse in a studio, it made sense to do an existing work. And Chris knew, excuse me.
An existing work because you wouldn't have to spend hours and hours in the studio?
Yeah, at that point, we were not allowed to be in the studio, but we were able to do a socially distanced filming. So the rehearsal process would have to be completely over Zoom from our homes, or once we just figured out that that wasn't going to work, Chris and I actually live relatively close together in Toronto, so we would meet up at a park and rehearse.
Yeah, because it's a space-eating solo, so how could you do it in your living room?
Yeah, and Chris is very tall, and so it was not really feasible to do in his kitchen. So Chris already knew 2/3 of the material.
Oh,
The opening solo from the film, it was originally actually performed on point. So that was more of a transition just because Chris had to learn it. I try to make a lot of my work gender neutral anyway, regardless of if the dancer is on point or not. And so it was actually not as difficult a transition as I originally anticipated. I would say it was more challenging to do in sneakers than it was the fact that it wasn't on point, just because of friction and turning, and there's a bit of floor work at some points during the solo. So making sure that that was safe and feasible to do on concrete.
Well, how did you feel about that? Let me just jump in and bring Christopher's voice into this. I mean, you were dancing assume you normally dance in ballet slippers, and here you were in sneakers. Have you done a lot of work in sneakers before?
Um, yes and no. Not that kind of work, I guess. But I kind of liked it. It was a nice change. It'd been a
Very
while
much of the
since I had.
moment in a way. I mean, it's like if I think of Little Buck and the things that, people are doing in sneakers and
And Justin Peck's work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was totally up for it. It gives you a different feeling of the floor for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Alysa's so open to adapting and stuff. So it wasn't an issue. I didn't think.
well, it's very much a site-specific work. I mean, I feel like the environment, the urban environment is a character in the play, so to speak. So, but you had to modify your movements to fit into some confined spaces, right, Christopher?
Yeah, there was. I think it was the first scene with the corridor.
Yeah.
That one was probably the most difficult because, I mean, on a stage you have more width, right? Whereas we had a lot of depth, but not much width.
Hmm.
So we kind of just had to, squeeze in a bit here and travel this way here or whatever. But it came
It gives
together.
it a very strong feeling of isolation and of the moment during the COVID quarantine period. It's a piece that seems to reflect that. I mean, Alysa, I can't imagine that when you made the quartet that there was any kind of feeling about isolation I mean, you had to revisit entirely, right?
Yeah, I think that we actually didn't change. I don't think we changed any of the movement, any of the sequence or anything. But that's my favorite thing about remounting work is revisiting it in a new context and it having new meaning. When it
Yeah.
was originally made, it was sort of inspired by a feeling of pull between two places. I'm originally from the west coast of Canada and have lived in Toronto for a long time now, and I feel equally at home in both places, but equally homesick for the other all the time.
Mhm.
And Chris is not from Toronto, and all the dancers in the original cast, no one is from Toronto. So we all had this feeling of, Toronto is our home, but we have this other place. And so it was about sort of feeling unsettled, and never quite being able to rest. And I think that restlessness is a big part of our experience in the pandemic. The Expansive Dances series of films, which in between is one of 3 films that were all choreographed by choreographic associates with the company and all filmed, directed by Ben Sherinian and produced by Ben and Jared Cook at Lookout. And the concept for these films originally was expansive dances, trying to find a sense of expansiveness within, our very contained and confined sort of environment. And so the location that we were at is called Evergreen Brickworks, and it's an old brick factory. And so the first solo is in the kilns, all that corridor, on the side are these old brick ovens.
Wow.
And then we were
I
able
was
to
wondering what that was. It's a fascinating place.
It's incredible.
An arts center.
It's sort of a,
They're like
I don't quote me on
farmers
this, but it's more of like a venue. They do a lot of weddings and events.
Oh, I see. Like
There.
an event space.
But then it's an entire complex that's also a park.
Yes.
And they have a farmer's market there.
What was the floor like to dance on, Christopher?
It was a little bit. I feel like I remember it being a little bit slick, and a little bit dusty though.
That's
Yeah, it
not
was
the
dusty.
dance. That's not the dancer's favorite.
Yeah, there was some turn moments where you turn and stop that, on a Mali floor you could do with a lot more precision, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was a combination of the sneakers I was wearing and the floor, but I actually kind of liked it.
The
It's
slipperiness.
difficult because we got there and we had what, like half an hour to get ready and then just start, and we were like, then
Oh
we
my
were
gosh.
going.
And what you were saying before about remounting the spacing during the corridor section, and you had,
I had visited the location before, so I
okay.
knew what we were getting ourselves into, but Chris had never, did you come before the day of the filming once, maybe?
Maybe I did.
I think we had a short rehearsal one day, but it was not
Oh yeah,
much.
yeah.
We were fortunate to be able to get into the space at all because it was all also shut down. So there was no, I remember there being no, like no lights or heating or anything or air conditioning. It was the summer, so we
I
would
was
have preferred the AC.
It was really hot. That's what I remember.
Yeah, I think that we dancers find interesting locations and then have to cope with whatever conditions. Yeah, but I think it communicates so well. I wanted to ask about the music. Did you know the composer? How did he write the music for you?
Yeah, the composer's actually my husband.
Okay.
So he wrote the score. We've worked together quite a few times, and he wrote the score for the original version of the piece. And typically he writes for me almost as if he's scoring a film. So we'll work in the studio to either other music or silence, and then he'll watch the video and score it from there. And then we
And
sort of
his name
adjust.
is Adam.
Adam Sakiyama, yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually sitting in his office right now with
Okay.
his little keyboard.
Well, give him my compliments. I think it's a beautiful score. And,
Thank you, I will.
you know, the location, the dancer, the dancing, the choreography, and the music, and also the filming. The filming becomes very important. The angles, and at some moments, the camera just focuses on the space itself. So we really get a sense of being in this place. We don't understand what it is. It's mysterious, but it becomes alive because of you, Christopher, and because of you beautiful choreography that you've given to us. So thank you so much for joining us. I think, you know, these comments and seeing you off site, you know, off the screen will give the audience that much more immediacy in terms of understanding the process, understanding how dancers like you and choreographers are functioning and staying creative in this very, very challenging time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.